Good morning. Welcome to the Women in Agriculture Celebrating Women's Leadership in Agriculture digital series. It's so exciting to be here this morning. Great session. So I hope you've all got your coffee or your water or your juice and you're great to go. We're just going to start a little bit with housekeeping slides. Your video and your audio has already been turned off. And if you would like to ask a question, there is a chat option that you can see on your screen, or you can also go into the Q&A, and we will monitor those. So feel free to add in, and there will be a couple times that I ask you to participate. And this session will be videoed, and if you've signed up, we'll be able to send it to you later, and it will also be available on some sites. So we'll make sure that information gets out to you. So I'm Faith Matchett. I'm super happy to be hosting this morning, and we'll get right to it. We're going to have a couple videos from our sponsors. So the first one, here we go.
Who is FCC? Well, our About Us is really about you, the goals you want to reach, and the dreams you have. You're invested in your business, and as the only lender 100% invested in Canadian agriculture and food, so are we. Because a dream is just the start. It also needs a lender who understands where your dreams come from, where they can go, and what it takes to get there. If you want to start, grow, or transform your agriculture or food business, we can help. Because we're not just your lender. We're your champion, your catalyst, and we're behind you every step of the way. We are FCC. Dream. Grow. Thrive.
And we'll go to another one.
My name is Alphonse Vermeulen. My wife and I farm 50 dairy cows on a robot in Urbania, Nova Scotia.
We actually got married in 2014 and bought the farm in 2014. And originally we owned a tie stall in Prince Port, and it was just January of 2020 that we moved to this site in Urbania.
We've been working with the Farm Loan Board since the beginning, when we first bought the farm in Prince Port. The Farm Loan Board was more flexible with the challenges we were facing trying to enter the industry.
They helped us actually to do this site switch. They provided us with a loan that helped us to retrofit the barn that we're standing in right now. That was a tremendous help. It was a big step for us to move from the tie stall to the milking facility that we have here.
So with the loan board, we're character lenders, and we do like to develop relationships with our clients. And what that means is through the years, we get to see how people are progressing and how they're growing. We get to see their weaknesses as well as their strengths. We do look at, we review their financials yearly, and we like to see where we can make that better and make them stronger.
So we're really a complement to the other lending options. You know, we say that we don't compete with banks or other lending agencies. What we really want to do is provide a solution for farmers that is different than what's being offered commercially. Really diving down on the business plan, working with them to make sure that they have a partnership with other programs or granting opportunities is really what we're focused on.
They understood a lot of things that even we didn't understand, and it really helped us navigate some tough times when you're trying to get into the industry.
And now we're going to be joined by our special guest, and we're going to start with the Honourable Minister Bibeau, who's the Federal Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food and represents the riding of Compton-Stanstead. First elected in 2015, the minister is very passionate about agriculture, agri-food, and also about hearing the voices of youth and women in this sector. Welcome, Minister.
Minister Colwell, Faith, distinguished panelists, thank you for including me in your celebration of the outstanding women leading Nova Scotia's agriculture and food sector. What a great panel and award-winning and diverse trailblazers, fearless women who are following their dreams and have valuable insights to share. Your stories and ideas are sure to be inspiring. Recent statistics paint an amazing picture. More than half of new farmers in Atlantic Canada are women. Women are truly transforming agriculture, and it is exciting. Women like Kathy Monroe, who is operating her greenhouses with state-of-the-art technologies to deliver greens at the height of freshness. Women like Martha Casey, who is actively involved in supporting the development of ag tech companies. You'll be hearing from Samantha Yannetti and her venture to foster family, friends, community, and the environment, and yes, bees. And Siobhani Dhameta. After immigrating to Canada a decade ago, she started a food business and has now opened her own production plant to keep up with demand. In just a few moments, you'll be hearing from Laureen Peters, who is a strong voice for the Atlantic region on the Canadian Agricultural Youth Council. The council is already doing great things to support young women as the new generation of leaders in agriculture. And from Pyrenea, as MP Cody Blois has pointed out to me, there are many inspiring women in leadership roles like Lynn Godling and her team. There are so many stories like yours happening across Canada. I can tell you that serving you as Canada's first female federal Minister of Agriculture and Agri-Food is an incredible honor. When I served as Minister of International Development, I met the most vulnerable women in the world. I was amazed by their resilience. Many are innovating their ways and helping to grow their economies, like you. Before entering politics, I was an entrepreneur too. For 20 years, I co-own a tourism business in my region in Quebec. Our government is working hard to make sure women can enter Canada's great agriculture sector and thrive. What I hear from women is that they still have to overcome more obstacles than men to start and grow a farm or food business. Finding mentors or flexible childcare services are just two examples. Access to financing is a big challenge. Women-owned businesses have been hit harder by the impact of the pandemic. Our government is helping small business owners retain their employees and keep up with their operation costs. This includes the 75% wage subsidy and deferred tax payments, to name a few. For women, running a business often means keeping up with the demands of family too. So we've boosted the Canada Child Benefit for parents. Looking ahead, Canada's agriculture sector is driving our recovery. Growing demand for our world-class agriculture and food products has pushed our exports into record territory. Our government wants to help you capture every opportunity. The Women Entrepreneurship Program, under the leadership of Farm Credit Canada, is a great tool too. This is something I'm very proud of. The program covers up to $1,000 in loan fees to be redirected in skills development. Right out of the gate, it was extremely popular. In just over 2 years, close to 1,800 women have applied and received loans. In response to the strong demand, FCC doubled the credit available from $500 million to $1 billion. All of this speaks to our government's commitment to you and your future. At your upcoming session on entrepreneurship and resiliency, MP Blois will share more about our government's programs and support. In the coming years, if we want Canadian agriculture to be more economically and environmentally sustainable, if we want it to be more inclusive and diverse, and to have a greater social conscience, then we all have to play a part in breaking down the barriers for the hardworking women in the sector. I wish you all a great conversation.
Stop sharing my screen. Thank you, Minister. And there we are all live now. And I would now like to welcome Minister Colwell. The Honourable Keith Colwell is the Minister of Agriculture for Nova Scotia, as well as the Minister of Fisheries and Aquaculture. First elected in 1993, he has great passion and great depth of knowledge in the agriculture and agri-food sector. Welcome, Minister.
Thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here today. And I want to commend Minister Bibeau for the fantastic support she's been for Nova Scotia and the great work she's doing for agriculture in the country, and a great friend and a great ally for all of us. Also, I want to thank Cody Blois as well for joining us today. He's also a great champion for agriculture. And Lauren Peters, wonderful to see you and on the screen today, and the great work that you're doing. When I first became Minister of Agriculture in 2013, it was a pretty exciting journey for me. I was born on a farm, and my family is a direct descendant of Empire Loyalists. But my generation's the first that have not farmed. My whole generation, all my family. And the farm, actually the original farm was owned by my uncle, was sold a few years ago after he died. And that's the first time it hasn't been in production by one of the family members since the 1700s. So it's quite interesting. But today it's exciting to see the wonderful array of very capable business people that are going to talk today, and women. It's exciting. When we started doing the last year conference on agriculture in person, which I hope we're going to be able to do again next year, it was fantastic success. We had 800 people show up, a lot of great ideas, and wonderful exchange, making new friends, doing all the things that are very important with these kind of events. And this virtual one is a great way to move forward too. I've got a tremendous respect for the women that work in agriculture in Nova Scotia. I see them and talk to them often with their families, and they share some of the successes and some of the issues they have, and we try whenever we can to help them. It's a wonderful transformation we're seeing. More and more people working to change their farms, and women have really, really stepped up. And over the years, women have always sort of been in the background. It's been very unfortunate. So today we'll see very capable people, which are changing the face of agriculture in our province, which we're very, very proud of and wonderful to see. So we're there to work with you. We have many programs that we work with through our agriculture, through our loan board, that complement the things that Farm Credit Canada do. And it's a very close working relationship we have with all. So I wish everyone success today. It's wonderful to be here. And unfortunately, I can't stay for the whole event. They've got me booked solid till midnight tonight, literally. So it'll be exciting to see what comes this, but I will guarantee I'll be watching this in the future. Thank you again.
Thank you so much for joining us, Minister Colwell. I know your days are crazy, wild, busy, so I super appreciate you joining us today. Thank you so much. And I'll just do a little intro. Next we'll be joined by MP Cody Blois, and Cody is the MP for Kings Hans, and he was elected in 2019. He's a member of the Standing Committee on Ag and Agri-Food, as well as the Standing Committee on Public Accounts. And I know he's extremely passionate about agriculture and agri-food. So welcome, Cody. Thanks for joining us.
Well, thank you, Faith, and it's a pleasure to be here just to bring some brief greetings. Marie-Claude and Keith already covered a lot of terrain, so I will be quick. But as you mentioned, I'm the Member of Parliament in Kings Hans, where agriculture, frankly, is a real bedrock of our economy. And I was reminded of that watching the video with Hans and Jolene, who are, of course, constituents in my riding. We have a real strong agricultural base across the board. I just want to quickly mention Minister Colwell's remarks. Minister, I didn't know that you had a long family history of farming and that you're the first generation that's not involved on the farm, but I do want to compliment you because although you might not be farming, you're certainly making a real contribution to agriculture in our province through your leadership. So we're pleased to have you and keep up the great work. But of course, we're here today to celebrate women in agriculture. And I don't have to look any further than my own group of colleagues, and particularly you just saw her, Marie-Claude Bibeau, who is the first female agriculture minister at the federal level in Canadian history. It's been an absolute privilege over the last 18 months to get to work with her. And Minister Colwell spoke to this about her leadership, her understanding of the files, and her advocacy. And she's bringing different perspective, I think, to the table. Lauren Peters, of course, who will speak to her involvement on the Agriculture Youth Council, is just one example of that. So Lauren, I'm looking forward to hearing your remarks. But I would be remiss without going on record to talk about how proud I am of the work that Marie-Claude does. I also want to talk a little bit about my local riding because Katie Keddy is the Federation President in Kings County, and Robin Bremner Papma is our Federation President in Hants County, two strong women leaders in our agriculture sector. I'll give a couple other names, and I better be careful because there's so many out there that I don't want to miss anyone, but I think about Veronica Vermeulen. I guess she's Smith now, but certainly a strong leader in our field. Kim Hatcher in Canning, who's doing some great work at the local level, and Amy Vanderhyde are just some names that come to mind amongst the many that are out there. Marie-Claude mentioned it. I have a great working relationship with Perennia. There's so many tremendous women that are working in that field, providing technical support in a whole bunch of different fields. My two contacts are normally Lynn and Kyla Pierrick. So Lynn and Kyla, thank you so much for me being a pain in your butt sometimes when I call at all hours of the night to ask questions and try to ask how I can be a strong advocate, but certainly to the whole team at Perennia, including for putting on this conference. Thank you so much. And finally, Faith, Lauren, Kathy, Siobhani, Samantha, and Martha, all who are on my screen. Like Keith, I can't stick around, but I'm excited to watch the video when it comes live and to hear your story. Siobhani, I've certainly had the chance to meet you in person and appreciate the work that you're doing in our riding. So with that, Faith, I probably have already gone too long, but thank you to everyone and enjoy the conference.
Thanks, Cody. Appreciate taking the time to come spend time with us. And now we're just going to hear our final guest until we get to the esteemed panel is Lauren Peters, who is the Nova Scotia rep on the Canadian Ag Youth Council. And I'll just explain that a little bit and give you a little bit of background. Lauren Peters is from St. Andrews, Antigonish County, and she was among 25 people from across Canada chosen as a member of the Canadian Ag Youth Council. And if I remember right, there was like 800 applicants. So that's a pretty impressive to get chosen. And that group is, just in case you're unaware, is a consultative body to the Agriculture and Agri-Food Canada, which is amazing. Lauren has a dual degree in international business, food business, a Bachelor of Agriculture and a Bachelor of Business Administration from the University of Dalhousie, and also Nova Aires University of Applied Science in Droten, the Netherlands. She graduated in 2019, and she's currently the Community Education Manager for Dalhousie AC. Welcome, Lauren.
Awesome. Thank you so much for having me today, and hello and welcome to this amazing digital panel celebrating women leadership in agriculture. As Faith mentioned, my name is Lauren Peters, and I am here with you all virtually to provide greetings on behalf of the Canadian Agricultural Youth Council. I have both worked and volunteered within the agricultural industry for over a decade. Although I did not personally grow up on a farm similar to Keith Colwell, I have been involved in the industry in many ways, such as working on an egg farm, being a busy 4-H member, and then going on to pursue an education in the field of agriculture. I graduated from Dalhousie's Faculty of Agriculture in May of 2019, and I'm now actually working for the faculty. As Community Education Manager, I lead the Faculty of Agriculture's efforts to raise the profile of agriculture in schools and communities in the region. This program aims to contribute to the development of sustainable and healthy communities by promoting a broad understanding of agriculture and research to educators, students, community groups, and the general public. I was also recently announced to represent Nova Scotia on the newly formed Canadian Agricultural Youth Council, where I advocate for women and youth in agriculture and the food industry. The Council is a group of 25 young Canadians providing advice, enabling ongoing dialogue on food-related challenges and opportunities, sharing information and best practices, and advising on the strengths and weaknesses of policies and programs affecting agriculture and agri-food sectors. I sit alongside 13 other strong female leaders within agriculture on this council, and it is an honor to have the opportunity to speak to you all today on behalf of them. I also have the privilege to work alongside the Honourable Marie-Claude Bibeau and the strong women on her team as well. I have found a love and a passion for this industry at a young age. I looked up to some of the women leading in agriculture across Canada, and I couldn't wait to be one of them someday. I hope that any young girls or women participating in today's session understand that there is a big place for women in agriculture. There is an abundance of opportunities within the sector, and I would love to see more women become involved. We are strong and passionate about producing safe and affordable food within our communities, as well as sharing our stories. I believe we need to support, empower, and connect all women in agriculture in order to strengthen the industry as a whole. Women have always played a vital role in agriculture. Each woman is strong and influential in their own right, and these women encourage us in their leadership, actions, and language. I'm absolutely thrilled to sit back and listen to 5 amazing female leaders today. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks, Lauren. It's super great to have you. And thank you to all the guests from this morning. It was lovely to have you. I know you're all busy and it's great that you could join us. And now we're going to move on to our esteemed panel of business women. And I'm going to start off by asking them, rather than introduce them, I'm going to get them to introduce themselves. And when they do that, we're going to get them to discuss the question, how do you define your leadership in the agriculture and agri-food space? What does being a leader in this space mean to you? And we'll start off with Kathy.
That magic mute button, eh? Good morning. Thank you so much for having me on this panel discussion. Such an important and very timely topic. I am Kathy Monroe, and I own and operate Bramble Hill Farm, and we're in Pictou County, Nova Scotia. We started off as a small market garden business at the New Glasgow Farmers Market, and then quickly found that what I really needed was to be growing year round, and so very quickly put up a greenhouse and kind of fell into a really interesting niche of providing microgreen salad mixes. So I've got one right here. If anybody who's seen this on the store shelf, you can find us in over 20 locations. This week, ask me next week, that number might be bigger. We grow microgreen salad mixes. So these mixes, traditionally microgreens were used as a garnish in fancy restaurants. And but they're, being that they are super young and tender, they are extremely nutrient dense and flavorful. And so we found a way to produce them on a large scale for everyday use in your sandwiches and salads, and so really bump up the nutrition level of every meal you eat. So our slogan is your daily dose of greens. So I hope you have that on your menu today. If you had told me 10 years ago, when we moved back to Nova Scotia, my roots are here and we went out west for a while and came back. If you had told me 10 years ago that I was going to be working in agriculture, I would have said, you're crazy. Like, I could hardly grow a squash. So in lots of ways, I feel like I was a bit of an accidental farmer, but it fit all the needs for our family, and has provided me with an exciting career as an entrepreneur. And the growth potential for women in agriculture, it's been said already, is unlimited, and super excited to be working in this field. Your question was, what does leadership in agriculture mean to you? I feel very much that I started this journey off as family first and self-care. And I often find myself coming back to that. If I'm not leading from a place where my number one priority is family and self-care, I can't show up as the leader that my business needs to be and that my employees need to have. for us to move forward if I'm not taking care of the number one things in my life. So for me, very much, leadership in agriculture needs to start at home and with yourself. And then you can show up in the very best way that you can lead. So thanks, Faith.
Thanks, Kathy. That was an amazing message. I think women in general need to hear that. Self-care is rare, I would say. Martha, would you like to go next?
Sure. Thanks so much. Thanks so much, Faith. And I just want to say, after meeting this lovely panel yesterday, I did pop down the hill to a shop outside my office and picked up some of Kathy's salad greens and had some last night, and it's a real treat. So I highly recommend. I got the salad mix, I think, and I'm very excited about the density of the nutrients. Although I may have kidded myself about how dense, but yeah, excellent. So I'm Martha Casey. I'm the CEO at Volta, which is an innovation hub in Halifax. We partner with organizations across Atlantic Canada and across Canada to really support innovation, entrepreneurship, and growth in technology. But that's not, there had been sort of a misconception that was related to coding, software development, and that's really, when you see the areas of growth and the verticals where we're seeing real investment, ag tech is a big part of it. We partner with Perennia on a number of initiatives, and I was so thrilled to be invited to be part of this panel, because when I think about not just growing companies, but women leading these growing companies, ag tech really rises to the top. And there's a growing interest, as we heard already today, in local, environment, sustainability. This is really where there's opportunity. And as we heard from Lauren and Minister Colwell, our province has a real history in agriculture. We don't need to step away from that to see prosperity. It's just looking at things in a different way. And it doesn't mean that organizations, family farms need to deviate completely from what they're doing. We just can support not just Volta, but Perennia collectively. And I was so inspired to hear our partners from the government talk about this today. We can support growth and sustainability through innovation and programs that really help women, agriculture leaders, but women specifically, grow in the way they want to. So as leaders in the ag tech space, I'm reluctant to use that word, because I really see Volta as an organization that supports the success of companies growing, particularly women. We serve all, we serve everyone, but we have, since Volta was founded, had programs designed specifically to support women in technology and innovation. And I think that we take our cues and we take our guidance from what the market is telling us that they want. So there's what I think, where I see ourselves fitting in is offering the supports, partnering with organizations like Perennia and others across Atlantic Canada to deliver whatever kind of programming, advocacy, lobbying, collectively and in partnership that's going to be helpful.
Awesome. Thank you, Martha. Would you like to go next, Siobhani?
Sure. Hello, I am Siobhani Dhameta. I hope everyone over here likes Indian food. We make authentic Indian spice blends and ready-to-use sauces. And my journey started in Canada around 10 years ago when I came as an immigrant, as a student. I came here, not here exactly, I went to London, Ontario. And from there, I met my husband over here, and then I moved to Halifax. And from then, I never looked back. I never wanted to go back to any other place. It's a place with amazing, nice people. When I landed here, I did not get a job. I did my master's in communications and public relations. So it was very difficult for me to find a job. I was sitting at Canada Game Center front desk. That was like my first good job, I would say. And I was sitting over there, and that's when my friend came to me and she said, "Hey, Siobhani, do you want to provide Indian meal to my brother. And that's when the journey started. So like an entrepreneur, I looked at every opportunity, and that's what I tell to everyone, that you should look at every opportunity. I just saw an opportunity for one person, giving him meal as a side business with some extra cash. Why not? So I started delivering to him, just one person, and that too I lost. I went for vacation in Dominica, and by the time I came back, he found someone else. So I cried a lot. And but then I did not lose hope, and then I found 20 people that I used to deliver 20 people every day to all the university students. It was like mini skip the dishes, or like food on the wheels. That's where the journey started. And then finally I opened the restaurant, which got a big hit during the pandemic. Like a lot of restaurant industry, we got a big hit. And last year in 2020, we had to unfortunately close it. And again, I cried. We entrepreneurs cry a lot, I tell you. So I cried, and but then I saw the opportunity with Sobeys that we could supply our sauces, our ready-to-use sauces, and our authentic Indian spice blends to Sobeys across Atlantic Canada. And then I took that as my goal. And then finally in December, we could achieve that goal. We supplied to all across Atlantic Canada, and we were super happy. And we have an amazing response, especially when I started the journey. It was 6 years ago, but I understood that we as like me, a lot of people used to support me as my business. So that's when I started supporting other local people. So I used to go to farmers market, buy vegetables, buy honey, like everyone else, most of the people. And then people started buying me, and that's when I understood how much buying local is important. So my ready to use sauces we get all local onions and local garlic. So that's amazing. And we also want to switch to local tomatoes. So we understand this, and we understand this when anyone buys, let's say when anyone buys my sauce, they don't just support my business, but they also support 2 other businesses. So that's what my main motive right now is, to support Nova Scotia, my Canada, who supported my English is my second language, okay? So do excuse me.
You're awesome.
So I always say Canada opened its arms 10 years ago for me and my family. So it's time to give back to my community. With that,
Lovely.
that's enough.
Lovely. You have to tell us, is the brand Siobhani's Kitchen?
It is Siobhani's
That's
Kitchen.
what we look for, right? When we go to
Yes.
the store? Okay, we got to have that.
It's at the frozen section for the sauces.
And the spices are in the spice aisle?
It's in the spice aisle, or
Specialty
you'll have
food.
to do a little bit of research for where the local products are.
We're going to find it. All right.
Okay,
Thank you. Samantha, would you like to go next?
Sure. Good morning, everyone, and hello to all the panelists. Thank you for having me. I'm excited to be here. So I'm Samantha Inetti, and I'm from Unama'ki in Cape Breton Island, and I co-own and operate Tuckamore Homestead. So we're a small family-run apiary or bee farm here on the island, and our harvest is actually honey. So we are actually mainly online and through social media like Instagram. So this is what we collect come the harvest season. And another big part of what we do and who we are is Tuckamore Foundation. So we're a not-for-profit entity, and we've dedicated that to building capacity within our communities through agriculture, and also providing opportunities and exposure to the industry. So for people who have traditionally been left out or underrepresented. And one of our first partnerships or projects that we had within our community is with Woodladeck First Nation. So we had youth come out to our farm and had them see, one, that we're here in the community. So when I grew up, I know Kathy had mentioned the accidental farmer. I identify with that so much. When I grew up, the idea of being a beekeeper, I'd be like, is that real? Like, does that exist here? So visibility was really important for us. We're a new farm, but we just wanted to say, here are 2 friendly faces in our community. I'm a female beekeeper, and my husband is a male beekeeper. So that visibility portion was really important to us, so that people can see an entry point. Here are 2 friendly faces. They can see themselves as valid candidates. Here's someone who looks like me, who's actually doing it, and maybe see that they could be successful. So someone who kind of looks like me, there's diversity there. So it is possible, because sometimes if you don't see yourself, you know, Old MacDonald that song doesn't include a whole lot of people. So sometimes if it's not in your mind that it's something that's even possible, you can do in your small community. So that's something that's been really important for us and establishing. And the question about leadership, I also was with Kathy on this one. So purpose is something that's really important for us. So simple definition, you know, why are you here and what do you want for your own personal life? So you might not want to do a community-based entity. It's about whatever suits you, and kind of giving yourself that permission, whether you're just starting your farm or your journey, or if you're already established in your business, reassessing, is this working for me? Is this honoring what's working and, you know, fulfilling you? And when you really lean into that and who you are, that's when it kind of overspills into your community. So that's what we found on our little farm here in Cape Breton.
Oh, that's awesome. I love the fact that really all you guys are embracing all sizes of operation as well. And whether it's traditional farming, farming involving more technology, family, it's available to all is kind of what you're all saying, which is, I think, lovely. You kind of started into it, Samantha, but, you know, diversity means having, to me anyway, diversity means having everyone at the table, but inclusion means having everyone at the table and everyone's voices are heard and valued. So I think it's the both that we are looking for. And I'd love to have your input on your, you know, what are your thoughts on how we can increase the presence and hear the voices of women and representatives from all Nova Scotians, which would include people of color and First Nations, as Samantha spoke to, at the Agriculture and Agri-Food leadership table. Do you want to start with that, Samantha?
Sure.
Yeah.
And I have notes so I don't go too long. Just give me like the nod.
No, you're good. You're all good.
I'm Cape Brettoner, so I do talk. So like two main points that I had for this was hands-on experience. So not just having someone on the team. So, oh yes, we have someone, you know, we have a woman, she's in accounting, or she's technically on our team, but she's doing the paperwork, or, you know, very needed in excellent positions. If that's your calling, do it. However, we also need people who have that hands-on experience. So for example, in beekeeping in my area, something I can speak to is there's a real physicality aspect to beekeeping still. It's been made by a specific person for a specific person. So if you don't meet that criteria, it can be challenging. So something like lifting bee boxes, there's something that's like a little unofficial standard test. So when you lift your bee boxes, it's kind of a way in the field to see how much honey that hive has. So you're always trying to assess if it's going to have enough honey to make it through the winter, because your bees are your number one priority. They're like your, you know, aside from anything else, you want to make sure that they're healthy. So they have to have honey, number one. So the problem with this test is that the standard is if it's really light for you to lift it, then you know that that needs some attention. If you can barely budge it, then you know that they're doing great. For me, physically, I can barely budge them on a good day just with the equipment alone. It doesn't make me any less of a beekeeper, but it just means that it's not, like I know just as much as my husband does, but I physically can't do the same work that he can do. So unless you have someone who is hands-on, they can't identify and say, hey, this isn't working for me. I don't meet that standard. Whether or not you're like a woman or a man that doesn't have that same physical standard, it's a very specific standard that's set. Or say if you say, I use a wheelchair, so I don't have the same reaching. So unless you have that person who's hands-on, no matter how much my husband wants to have diversity and stuff, he just doesn't have that firsthand experience. So he just wouldn't even know that is an issue. So having people on hands-on positions, I'd say is really important, not just on the team, because you have to have people who can identify where there are areas that need improvement. So other than that, I also said support for hiring women and also technology and innovation. So that can make agriculture more equitable. So again, I speak from a beekeeper's perspective because that's my firsthand knowledge. But say if, like me running my farm right now, I can't physically do it by myself. It stings, no pun intended. But say if we're putting in spring treatment, I'm pregnant right now, so I can't do it. My husband gets to do it. So if there was a leadership position that came open, he has more experience technically than I do working the hives. I have just as much knowledge, but I wouldn't have technically as much experience. So if a job came open, he would be the one between the two of us who would, you know, have the more right to have that position on paper. So I would say having support for, if I wanted to run my firm, if it was just me, if we weren't family run, if there was something for me to hire, you know, hire help type thing. But also it also goes hand in hand, because even if there was a candidate who looks like me, who's just as passionate, but they don't have that physicality still without the innovation and change, I still would hire that person that has the physicality, because that standard is still there. So I would say, you know, support is really important, and incentives to hire women, because financially, even if you have, you know, if you really want to hire and have diversity, you have to be able to make your firm work. At the end of the day, it has to be economical, it has to be efficient, and it has to make sense. Yeah. So even if you can identify that you really want to hire this person in the community, they have passion and interest, they just physically can't meet that demand right now, as your sector is.
Thanks, Samantha. Those are great points. And I was going to mention to the audience, because you mentioned it to us yesterday, Samantha sounds like she's just run a marathon. It's because she's got a baby that's going to try to pop out in about 2 weeks. So she's full up with baby, but yet she's still here, which is fantastic. Thank you. Thank you. Those are such good points. Martha, or Kathy, are you trying to, I see you're trying to, your light's on. Would you like to weigh in then? Or you?
Sure. Okay. Speak now. Sorry, I didn't realize I was off mute. Sorry about that.
You're fine. You guys can. I mean, we didn't really talk about this, but weigh in as you like, or you know. And if you don't weigh in, I'll ask you.
So your topic was, how can we increase the presence and hear voices of women and representatives of all Nova Scotians. So this is my 4th year running the greenhouse full time. And really the first couple of years, I mean, working in agriculture is entrepreneurship, right? You are creating new, constantly trying to figure stuff out. You know, you are all consumed by getting this thing established. And you know, the first few years, especially I'm also raising small children, it's very, very difficult to find any blocks of time to, you know, create mentorships or, you know, work with groups of peers. But yet in the last couple of years, when I've, you know, started to focus, been able to, you know, work a little less in the business and more on the business, I've come to realize how important having opportunities to, you know, gather with a group of peers and brainstorm ideas out, you know, I've a meeting with another business person in New Glasgow, you know, occasionally on Friday afternoons with a glass of wine, and just having someone else to talk to about entrepreneurship and not feeling so alone. And the things that come out of that in our conversation leads you to feel more clarity in what you're doing and more passion, I find. So where I'm going with this is how to include everyone in this. I feel like those first few years of being so deep into like just getting something to work and finding the time to meet with a peer group, it needs to be a priority. And I didn't know that. You know, you're just so focused. And so if there was some way that we could support new women in agriculture, entrepreneurship, or, you know, people who are stepping into a new role in the agriculture field, if there was some way that we could bring these together into peer groups so you don't feel alone in your journey, and then that gives the group, it's kind of like when you have breakout sessions in, you know, some kind of conference or something, right? There's going to be one person in that group who's then going to speak for that group. If we could have all these little tiny pods that then had one person who spoke out for a bigger group, you know, you could hear from so many more voices, right? Instead of, you know, just, I find sometimes when I go to, say, like the Federation of Agriculture meetings, really, you know, a lot of different people come to those, but mostly it's the same people who feel confident in their own voice that come and say things. You know, if you go to a few meetings and you never speak up, you don't feel comfortable in that larger situation, and you never say anything, eventually you don't go to those meetings, right? And so we're missing those voices that may be more comfortable in really small groups. That was just an idea I had.
No, I think we'll get into peer groups and mentorship, I think, a little bit later, but I think those are great points. Great points. So Martha, do you have any thought? Would you like to weigh in on you know, increasing the presence and hearing the voices of women and more diverse reps?
Absolutely. So I think you know, this isn't necessarily unique to agriculture, but I think just hearing from Kathy, there are and also Samantha, I mean everybody, but just the on this specific question, there are some particular challenges, particularly with family-run businesses. You've got to hire the person who can do the job or who's familiar with it. So a big part of that is pipeline building. So socializing the idea of what opportunities are available from an early age. So the work that Lauren Peters is doing with the Youth Council, I'm thrilled that this is happening, because it's going to open up all kinds of different opportunities, and sort of like Kathy was saying, a bit of a voice from a range of sort of representatives from a range of different people, so that the government can actually, and different lobby groups can actually come up with programs that support reskilling or upskilling at different stages. So I think that that's very, very important. Increasing visibility in terms of the range of opportunities. So I think, Samantha, you mentioned, you know, great if somebody becomes an accountant or is an accountant and they work at the farm, but you need people to actually do the work and see themselves in that work. Sometimes that foot in the door. So I've heard a couple of times today about the accidental farmer. So people can, by even a little bit of exposure, people can start to see what opportunities are out there. So starting in one place, if there's a interest expressed in learning more about, you've still got to have somebody to do your books, but if your accountant wants to learn, say, how to do X or Y, just bit by bit, I find that in smaller operations that there's more opportunity to do that. And the third thing that sort of stood out to me, and it's not a tomorrow solution, but I think it would be great if, really fantastic if everybody could think about this, and it could bring huge opportunity, is innovation to overcome the barriers. So for example, lifting the bee box. Is there some way, is there some tool, and I don't know, you know, I'm not a scientist, but is there some other technology that could be used that could overcome that barrier, so that anybody, you know, we're seeing different technologies being used across the board. I know there's tremendous research coming out of NSCC and the other post-secondaries in Nova Scotia. So there's an opportunity there. There's an interest in supporting that kind of research and development. So the more of that we can see, I think there's huge potential.
Yeah, thanks, Kathy. That's such a link between what you and Samantha said. You know, Samantha, getting the people on the farm to even realize there is a barrier, and then using the technology to overcome it. Yeah, I think that's great. And earlier, before this call started, Kathy had talked about just the opportunity of bringing in people that we don't even think about to get into agriculture, which you highlighted as well. So all great. Siobhani, so yeah, do you like to speak to how we can bring in more diversity, more inclusion into the business? You're more from the agri-food side, yeah, right, than the primary agriculture, but still.
I would like to take back everyone to my story, how to bring more diversity and more. So I'm an immigrant, and I come from a very restrictive family. When I say restrictive, I was not even allowed to talk to boys in my school. So I was very restricted family. And then coming in, and I still remember my mom and dad, they always used to say that, Siobhani, you're revolutionary, which means like, I do not follow what they say and I do what I have to do, which was good on one side. I learned from my own mistakes. I accepted from my own mistakes. I'm very multitasking. And we all women, we have one quality in common, which is we are all multitasking. Okay? And so when I landed up in Canada, I was, again, it wasn't an easy journey to come to Canada. Like my dad even did not allow me to drive a car because he was like, oh my God, what will happen to my daughter if she drives a car? She'll definitely meet an accident. So then coming to Canada and starting my own business was not an easy journey till like just now my parents have accepted that my daughter is an entrepreneur and she has taken a big risk in her life. So we immigrants, we have there are many people like me back home, and a lot of immigrants are like me. We have because we come to Canada, and just let you know that when we come on a student visa, we spend a lot of money to come over here. So we have a lot of dreams in our eyes, and that's why we also want to do an extra effort. So I would like to say to all those women that just believe in yourself and just become revolutionary, and you will find yourself an entrepreneur in yourself, and listen, but do what you want to do. You will learn from your own mistakes. So I wanted to bring a story side, like everyone else had great points. So that's my story.
No, you bring the self-belief and the courage.
Yes.
You know, there's a lot of courage, but believing you can do it, right? And you did it.
Yes, and if I fall, then it was my mistake. And this, yes, everyone, if you come from IT industry, let's say you fall making an app, you learned from that, and all you have to do is like pull yourself back up, cry for 2 days, and the third day you're like, oh, I'm not doing anything better, so let's learn from what mistake I did from the past.
Mistakes are okay.
Yes, mistakes are okay.
Yeah, tears too.
Siobhani, you have so much courage and confidence. I can feel it through the screen. Yeah, that's
Thank you, Kathy. Thank you.
an amazing story. Yeah.
It's an amazing story. So what do you think, what do you see as the gaps, you know, in terms of women being able to grow into or fill leadership roles within our sector? And what ideas do you have for closing those gaps? And I think two that have come up so far would be peer groups, as Kathy spoke to, and mentors, which a number of you mentioned. So maybe we want to embed that into the conversation, but what would you see as the gaps? And I would invite the audience, you're certainly welcome to go into the chat function and put your comments. It helps us in terms of the conversation and engages you as well, because we can't see you, which is a bit sad. You know, we're so used to being able to see the faces in the room. So we'd love to hear your voices in the chat if you're up for it. But yeah, Siobhani, do you want to start with that? What do you see as gaps in terms of women being able to grow or fill the leadership roles? Do you want to weigh in on that?
Yes, the biggest gap is the confidence. We are multitasking, as I said before, but we also think that we are dependent on others. I'm dependent on my mom and dad. I'm dependent on my husband. Yes, but now, like I was just speaking to my mom in the morning that like I remember my grandmother, she always used to cover her head, and then came a time when my mom, but she'll always cover herself like fully, and like look at me now wearing sleeveless. It's a big thing. Like my cousin brothers would not accept me like that. So but I would say that don't be dependent on others, just trust yourself, and then that's when the gap will close. I see there are still a lot of people when I go out and I talk and they're like, oh, she's a woman, or she's an immigrant, or she doesn't understand Canadian culture. But I'm like, oh, I'm ready to learn that Canadian culture. Just explain to me, and I am ready to talk more about the weather. And so can you. That gap is going to be removed only if the confidence comes in yourself. So just be you.
Just be you. Oh, that's wonderful. And you said confidence, but you also said openness. Like you're open to have the conversation. You're open to learn. You're open to learn. That's a wonderful, that's a beginner's mind, they call it. Yeah, lovely.
Faith, actually, I would like to really say a story. When I came as an immigrant over here, I did not used to talk to a lot of people. I was like an introvert sitting in my own shell, maximum talking to my own Indian friends. And then 2 years ago, I met like an Indian origin Canadian, and I spoke to her like, I don't know what to talk to Canadians, like weather, great, but what else? And she said, and I always used to feel that people will get offended. But then she told me, like, Canadians think that too, that they don't know my culture, so they might offend me. And then like, no, we will not offend each other. So just be open and just talk to me. I will not be offended, and I will keep on talking. Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful. I think that's true. I think we all worry about offending any diverse group, any diverse person that we're talking to. And maybe that is a Canadian hang up, but the openness that you are offering is the way through it, you know. Wonderful. That's a wonderful. Wonderful.
I want to just build on Siobhani's comment there about confidence. I feel like it's having the confidence to own your story, right? And I find that I try to spend a lot of time journaling, and I come back to this a lot, like, you know, not to diminish what I've built and what I am trying to build, and to like put it out there, you know, and that is like having the confidence to do that. But really, when you do own your own story and you share it, because everybody's story is different. You and I might have exactly the same business, but we come from different backgrounds, and, you know, there's different things we bring to the table. So, you know, that is my unique story. And when I can really own it and share it and be passionate about it, then, you know, it's going to help build my voice, but it's also going to help build other people's voices as well around you, right? It's like supporting other businesses. It's exactly the same thing, right? It's showing up and just owning your story, and then that goes back to, you know, the showing youth that they can do this as well, right? Like being visible.
Yeah, maybe it's owning your story and sharing your story or telling your story too, right? That's the inspiration piece, right? To share, right? Yeah. Oh, awesome. Thank you. Martha, do you want? Oh, sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Samantha. No, please.
I'm like
please,
chomping at the bit.
Oh, go.
I just want to say, like, my preconceived notions going into this, even when I was asked to do the panelists, like I had that, I had put together like a presentation. I didn't know how it would be. And like kicking that inner critic of who is considered a valid candidate. It's like, I don't know, like I'm not a generational farmer. I don't have a PhD and like beekeeping, like who am I to be doing this? And both of you have already touched on having that confidence, kind of owning your story, and like kicking that inner critic and really leaning into like who you are. I was thinking like, this is going to be out there. They're not going to ask me to ever speak on this again. That's like, you know, it doesn't sound like it's connected to agriculture, but that's been so like integral. And, you know, anything that I've had to do in terms of like the Technor Foundation that we had, that's not something that I had in my head as something that a farmer might do, but it was like my own story and something that I was passionate about. So I led into it. And had I let that inner critic not had the confidence to kind of lean into my story and just what I was really interested in and who I am, I wouldn't be working with youth, and they wouldn't, you know, be able to come out and get hands-on bee experience just because I'm not confident enough to believe in that. So I just feel so connected to what both of you are saying. Have the confidence, own your story, no matter what that looks like for you. You might not see it in agriculture right now. It doesn't mean that it's not agriculture. So I was chopping at the bit.
No, I think it's good. Did you just before we go to Martha, do you have any thoughts on how you kick that inner critic? What do you do? Because we all have her, and she's nasty. How do we kick her?
Kick the inner critic. Sometimes I'm just like, you know what, like whether you kick it or if you don't and you just kind of stick where you're not supposed to be, it doesn't feel right. And things just don't, you kind of know in your own life of stuff, you have kind of like the little signs, You know, maybe you have migraines all the time, or maybe you just feel really stressed out all the time, or you're not enjoying, you know, there are signs in your life to kind of say, is this working for me? So I don't know what that looks like for other people, but I know for me, it just something was missing. I am beekeeping and I love it, but something's still missing. So, you know, you deserve and have permission to lean into that, even if it doesn't look like it's going to meet your economic, you know, goal or whatever that is. Lean into it, and you know, positive things will come out of it. If that's your true purpose and where you're meant to be, it will happen.
That's awesome. Wow. Martha, would you like to comment?
Sure. So, you know, I think every single person on this panel is somebody that in one context or another, others look up to and others see as an example and say, well, look, she did it, so I can do it. You know, I've been interested in farming, or I see I'd like to start my own business. And it's important. Sometimes I think framing things that way and say, you know, well, look, I've come this far, not in a way that puts pressure on anybody, but just recognizing that whatever has been achieved is something that somebody else is seeing as a way to set their own goals and their own benchmarks. So it's very easy, particularly in fields that aren't traditionally led by women or populated by women, it's very easy to have self-doubt. And, you know, there's culturally things can be a little bit different. Those conversations that, you know, when Kathy was talking about getting groups together, it's, if that happens and there's only 1 or 2 women at a table of 20, it can feel a little bit intimidating. And you know, you don't know, do I really belong? And this maybe doesn't quite align with what these others have done, but it's just not true. Everybody's bringing something, a different perspective to the table. And as agriculture itself is, as the sector is expanding, the different perspectives and the roles, it's critical to acknowledge the importance and the value that these bring. But I think, so there's, first of all, kind of overcoming or leaning in, as Samantha said, to whatever it is that you're feeling, and then overcoming that in sort of the moment, and then gradually changing the broader perception, because there is part of the reason that people do feel like they don't quite fit is because if something's been happening for decades or centuries, there is a bit of a, whoever's already at that table might raise their eyebrows or might think, well, that doesn't quite fit. And by just using the experience you have, asserting your own voice, that goes a long way to changing perception. And there is the support. There's the support to do this. There's support to see more women in this sector. So take every opportunity to use that support.
Thank you. Thank you.
Faith, I just had one really quick thing to add. Right at the end of Samantha talking, you asked about kicking your inner critic.
Yeah.
And I think that social media can be so amazing for building a business and so devastating for your confidence level. And that if you let your inner critic go wild on Instagram feeds and looking at the very beautiful side of glamorous aspects that you know we all want to show out there, you can very much get beat up by the perception that everyone else has it easy and, you know, like I don't fit in this journey or whatever it is, right? So very much like keeping reins on your inner critic while you're using social media is so important.
Yeah, I think that is so true. It's like we're looking at somebody else's highlight reel, but thinking it's reality, but we don't show our whole story either. Right? So yeah, no, that's a super point. That's awesome. Lovely conversation, you guys. There's some comments coming in, you know, your mistakes are valuable to others as well, not something to be shy or ashamed of in the learning process. And there was also a comment on peer mastermind with women vegetable producers. So we'll have to talk about peer and mentoring as we go along. You know, maybe we could move to, you know, what would your advice be, or would you care to give advice to a woman someone from a diverse population in the agriculture and agri-food sector in terms of growing their leadership and growing their business? What would be your advice? Martha, maybe we'll start with you. I don't think I've started with you yet. Martha, would you mind?
So I mean, sort of building on what I just said, I think the advice is, as much as there are programs out there, I think there is a commitment to supporting women in this field. There's going to be more of it. So take advantage of everything that comes your way. And Kathy, you talked about social being just potentially devastating, and I totally agree. But if you can use that, like use every tool you have to kind of build, promote, and I find this very difficult, so I'm a big talker and say like everybody should go out and do this and this, but it's the advice I get for our organization. Go out and sort of shamelessly promote your successes, but also I think I would really encourage people to look at what agriculture is a little bit more broadly. So if you're interested in science or research and development, there is a place for you. And as we all acknowledged earlier, this is an important part of our economy and a growing part of our economy. So there is a future in this. It may not be what people had envisioned originally, but whatever your background is, if you're an engineer, there is an opportunity, and you're interested in this space, there is an opportunity for you here. Partner with programs at NSCC or the post-secondaries. Look at what's happening in the valley, the wineries. There's all kinds of opportunity if you can be creative. And I also think I keep going back to what Kathy had brought up about these pods, these groups of people that can kind of sort of build some advocacy. I think if there's some way, and Perennia, I could see a role there that building out some opportunity to sort of facilitate some of these groups. I think those groups or something like that could help more women connect to those opportunities. So it's just figuring out where you can connect in and then just forge ahead.
So the smaller peer group idea of support as well as advocacy in the...
So peer-to-peer, just all the data shows across the board with entrepreneurship, that is one of the most valuable things. And it's extraordinarily cost effective because you're not paying for that, and it's that shared experience, recognizing that you're not alone, and then hearing what somebody else has done. It also builds a collaboration, even if it's informal. If you think back historically to the lobster fishermen and how they came together and built a co-op, it's people recognizing shared opportunity, and if there is something there, the peer groups can identify it rather than some top-down or bureaucratic approach. So that's something that struck me really at the beginning of this conversation, that a big gap that could be easy to fill, that Kathy.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
Sorry to weigh in.
Oh,
So earlier, before this panel group opened up, I had an opportunity to speak with Mr. Colwell, and I had mentioned to him, so I had been part of the Small Scale Farm Accelerator Program, which has been phenomenal to help me build my business. And one of the aspects of that is right in the first year, they give you funding to build a business plan. Because, well, where are you going with all of this? Why are we going to throw money at you if you don't have a plan, right? And so, and in that, there was two options. One, to hire a consultant, or they actually identified that we should pay the farmer or the agri-tech person to build their own business plan. Your time is valuable, and it's so valuable to have this business plan. Here's the dollars for your time, build the business plan. So I know this is a stretch, but if we want to see small agribusinesses become, something larger and grow into something viable, if there was a way that we could show, add an incentive to be part of these peer groups. So even I was thinking if if that means, okay, the peer group's going to be on Sunday and we're going to offer childcare so that you can drop your kid off, like that just makes it one step easier. Or, you know what, your time is valuable. So as part of the funding stream in this small scale accelerator or whatever program you're in, you know, for every peer group you go to, here's $50 towards your next part of the funding pot that you're working towards, right? Like just showing people, just giving that little bit of extra, like I'm not, you know, helping them prioritize like how important it is to get together with peer-to-peer groups or whatever you're going to mentorship or whatever. But yeah, just, you know, Sunday is a very, you know, it's hard to give up a Sunday, especially for small farmers that maybe are doing a Saturday farmers market too, because you're exhausted on a Sunday, but really it might be the only time that these diverse groups can get together or whatever. And making that just a little more accessible by having a free day camp for kids or whatever, and hiring a few teenagers to do that.
Okay, that's awesome. That's super awesome. Samantha, do you want to weigh in on this particular topic, and then advice for women in agriculture and agri-food in terms of growing their leadership in their business?
Sure. So like my thing that I would say is just kind of looking to go back to purpose again. It sounds like, you know, it's simple, but it's not simple, because you kind of, you know, when you're little, like you're told to follow your dreams, you can do whatever you want, but then you get to a certain point where that kind of fades off. And it's like, okay, you're in high school and, you know, what are your skills? And I'm from an area where coal mining was really popular at one point. That was a steadfast generational thing that you could go into. And when the coal mines closed, I feel like for my generation, the pressures kind of changed to when you're in high school, your main things that you should focus on are a permanent full-time job. Government job was like, you know, these key words that you should be looking for, but not necessarily, you know, passion or what is going to work for you in your family life. If you want what's important to you. So I feel like at some point that kind of changes. So it sounds really simple to focus on, you know, what do you really want? But when you've kind of grown up in a time when security is so important, it comes from a place of love. You want your family to have security. Of course, permanent full-time position, pension benefits, those were like, ooh, it's like the big, you know, the big words here in my really small community. But what happens sometimes when you get into these things, you know, something's still missing, even though you have that security. So, you know, what do you really want? Kind of giving yourself permission. And I know that's a really privileged thing to say. I will say that, because sometimes you do just have to have security, right? But, you know, giving yourself permission even to kind of dream, and what does that look like? What kind of lifestyle do I want for my family? You are allowed to do that. And even if you're not in a place security wise that you can, even just letting yourself think that way, it kind of brings more of it. So number 2, I would say kick that inner critic. You're enough right now, so it's corny. And if you need the corny factor, I will bring it. No one else has what you have to offer. No one else has your story or your background, your culture. No one else has what you have right now. And, you know, I know Kathy had talked about, I was like, yes, when you said it about the social media, that is, and also talking about like peer groups and, you know, everybody has kind of talked about, you know, just being able to talk with other people. Don't be afraid to connect. So as of right now, we're really connected in terms of like social media. My business archetype would be I'm a creator. So I am drawn to things like Instagram and creating. That's my thing. But even I still in that platform where, you know, I thrive. I love making pretty pictures. That's just a part of who I am. I still feel that pressure. So social media, kick that inner critic. You're enough right now. Even if you have an iPhone picture of what you were doing, that is still enough. And people need to see that. They don't just need to see something just in one lens type thing. Permission to pave the way. I know Martha touched on this a bit. So you don't have to see something. If you're an engineer, whatever it is that is you, there's a place for you in agriculture. If you like taking pretty pictures, you think that I have no place for that. There could be a social media position for you on that team. If you know, whatever it is that makes you, you have permission to get into the industry and there is a spot for you. And then my number 4, I had a PowerPoint to keep myself like reined in. What do you really want? So the permission to go back to that. Maybe you're in your business and you're like, okay, I have the security, like you're going back to that, you know, the things that's kind of built into us that we should really want. If it's not working for you, you still have that permission to change it. We were doing beekeeping. We left the rat race, you know, back to basics, living for a family. Those are like all kind of key trendy words, but something's still missing. So what do you really want? It doesn't have to look like what someone else is doing. Giving yourself that permission throughout at whatever stage that you're in to kind of trust those instincts. You know you better than anybody else.
Thank you. Wise words, my soul. Lovely. And Siobhani, do you have advice you'd like to give to people on growing their leadership, growing their business?
Yes. Well, I would say, like, I do a lot of research. My dad was an engineer, so I have no background of agriculture. I did not know where my food came from. I used to go to a supermarket and buy it. So when I can do, you guys can do too. So all you have to do is like doing a lot of research. My only work right now is like sitting in front of the computer and talking to people and asking questions. No question is a silly question. That's what I learned. Something what Samantha said too, like asking for mentorship. Maximum they won't reply, maximum they would say no. The other thing which I would really like to add is we as a woman, we have great positive points. There's one negative point of many women of ours. We want to try to do everything by ourselves. We want to do, like, let's say example, kitchen. When you are cooking, you don't want anyone to come and interfere in that kitchen. Like, at least my mom and I don't like. Let someone else cut the beans. Let someone else cut carrots for you. If you are not good at social media, let someone else do that. And you do, if you're good at production, do that. If you're not good at marketing, remember, marketing is a very important skill in any kind of your business. So you're not good at it, let someone else handle it, but it's an important part. You cannot do everything. And if you want to grow, you have to just let it go and give others an opportunity so that you can do what you are good at. That's it.
Yeah. Oh, that's super. Like, we want to control, eh?
Yes.
maybe we want it to be perfect, or I'm not sure, but
yeah,
let it go and ask for help, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah. Delegate. It's okay. Oh, those are lovely, lovely. We're getting close to time, but it's come up a couple times, and there was a question that popped up about mentors. Have you guys worked with mentors? Do you have stories to tell about working with mentors? You recommend it? I think, Siobhani, you used the word mentor. Do you want to talk about that?
Yeah. If you spoke to me like 2 years ago and thinking about getting into Sobeys, yes, getting into Sobeys, but I did not understand how Sobeys works. Remember, I don't know how Loblaws works, and you might have a similar difficulty. So I worked with a consultant who helped me understand how these companies work, and there were like so many short forms and what does SKU means, simple things. And now I call him Guru. So, and I follow him I give him the credit of he made me reach this point. So listening, and like my dad always say that I was never a good listener, but he said it's a very good quality to be a good listener. And now I know what he meant. So be a good listener, have a mentor, ask.
Yeah, ask for help. Don't try to do it all on your own.
No.
That's basically what you were saying, eh?
Yes.
Yeah, lovely. Do any of the rest of you have stories about mentors or share comments about having a mentor?
So if I can just jump in, and this is advice that I've been given, don't identify just one person. You're going to need different advice and support at different times. So if somebody recently said to me, sort of make a list of the people that you can draw on and what you need or what advice they can best give you, and then figure out when and how you'd reach out to them, because you don't want to, you want to be conscious of not overtaxing one person and it also, I think there's so much mutual learning that can happen through mentorship. So I think the relationship itself is so important. So just kind of using that in the right way, rather than kind of just doing it for the sake of doing it. But hugely valuable. I mean, truly, I think critical, especially in kind of help getting the support to promote you. And Siobhani, I think your example is spot on. And
yeah, call on the experts when you need the experts. And I love the idea of having a list of people and having specific skill sets or topics or areas of expertise that you can draw on, as opposed to thinking there's one mentor who can do it all, or one expert who can do it all. Yeah, lovely. Kathy or Samantha, have you used mentors? I know Kathy referred to a peer group that she's worked, or peers that she works with.
Yeah, I feel like I've had a few formal relationships, but some of the most important ones are just informal, and having a relationship with someone that, it's just a text message that you need to reach out and say, hey, I'm really stumped on this like one thing and I need the outside perspective, right? Do you have 5 minutes to talk? Has been very valuable. I think it's difficult though in the beginning to build those relationships when you're new in a sector. And like I came from a fisheries background. I had a job with the provincial government. I didn't know anybody in agriculture. Like I started going to a few conference things, that were available and trying to network and that sort of stuff. But to try to also do that while you're building a business is difficult for time. We've only got so much of it, right? So I think that I feel like I would have appreciated some kind of a way or framework to help guide me in building those relationships. I don't know if that sounds weird, but if there was a list that says, hey, in the first 2 years of your business, it would be really great if you could find people that you could talk to about these topics, even just having that, so that, and you can, in your peer group, talk about, hey, do I know, like, oh yeah, so-and-so's dad used to run this business and he'd be a really great person I know he wouldn't mind if I called, right? Like just taking the time to fill in that list is a job in itself, right? So
yeah, especially if you're a new entrant, I guess, is your point, right? If you're coming from outside, if you grew up in agriculture, you might have a list of people, but if you didn't, you might not have in that specific area, I guess.
Yeah, and I feel like too, in the beginning, like, I feel like I was afraid to ask for help, that it was a sign of weakness if I didn't know the answer. And, like it's easier to go on Google and waste so much of your time going through links and, like trying to understand it, because you feel so nervous to reach out to a real person because you don't know even the language maybe, right? Like Siobhani, like speaking to your guru, right? Like, if you don't know what a skew is, like it can be very intimidating to admit that, right? So that's, in the beginning, it's hard. I feel like, especially in the farmers market world, sometimes stepping in as a new farmer at the farmers market, it can be difficult not to see everybody as competition and not want to necessarily build peer relationships because you feel like maybe you're in direct competition. But when the reality is you're all building each other up, right? It just takes time to feel that way.
Yeah. I so much agree with Kathy with the farmers market thing, because that's where I started. I just went to Spryfield Farmers Market, Kathy, and then yes, we are all competition. Actually, we're not competition. We are there to support each other, and we are there to help each other. So I used to go and ask our fellow vendors all the time question, hey, which other farmers market do you go? What do you do? How do you make your table? And they are a big reason that I could do so many farmers markets, and they are a big reason. So yeah, and especially in the farmers market is that if you're not having a good day, most probably all of us are not having a good day. So we are on the same boat.
Yeah.
And you felt openness when you approached them? I mean, you like, we create our own barriers. Like when you guys go and ask people, you get, they were willing to help and weigh in, Siobhani? Like,
yeah, like I think I'm very talkative. So I used to be like, oh, I hope they're not offended. But once one farmer helped me, I was like, okay, everyone can help me. So I started going around and asking questions.
yeah, back to your courage and openness and self-belief,
Yes.
right? The foundation, which maybe ties to Samantha and the purpose, right? We're weaving a box around the same things, which is lovely. Well, we're at 10:25, if you can imagine. So I just want to thank you ladies, Kathy and Martha and Siobhani and Samantha. I want to thank you so much for joining this session and being able to share your wisdom with us. It's been a wonderful, in my view anyway, it's been a lovely conversation. I've learned lots from you. So I want to thank you very much. And I want to thank the audience. I wish I could see them, but I can't. I wish I could see them very much so, but next year, hopefully. But I want to thank them for joining this session and for participating. There's been some great comments, which has been lovely. And I do want to mention that there are 3 more digital sessions. There's one next Wednesday on climate change adoption leaders from noon to 1:30. And then on Tuesday, April 20th, there's the 2nd annual Ministers Awards of Excellence in Agriculture, which is exciting, also from noon to 1:30. And then the 3rd and final one is the last week of April. So there's one every week this month, which is lovely, is Entrepreneurs Forum, Staying Resilient in Challenging Times. And that's also from noon to 1:30. So I want to thanks again the panel. Thanks to the guests that came at the beginning, and also thank you to Adam. You see him. We didn't get to see his picture. He's just on the screen as tech support, but he's been super helpful at making all this work in a time when we can't be face to face. So be well, everybody, and thank you so much. It was wonderful, wonderful to get to know you all, ladies. Thanks so much. Bye bye.